I'm actually the first person in my father's family history to attend and graduate college, even grad school as well.
Oh, let's even start with, how did this particular responsibility shape your determination and also position you in a way where you're like, there are people looking up to me, I need to do better?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I knew I couldn't mess up. I knew quite early that I was breaking a yoke, so to say. I was opening a door.
Franklin Nwachukwu is a change maker whose journey began as the first person in his family to graduate college, a milestone used to empower others.
In 2019, Franklin's potential as a leader was recognized when he was selected as one of 50 exceptional young Nigerians for the Venture in Management program, Lagos Business School. Among over 2,000 applicants, he was named the most outstanding male participant, underscoring his commitment to excellence and leadership.
I want you to speak to your journey from Nigeria to the US. You studied an MBA, you did 2 masters. Now let's transition to, yes, you got the admission, you got full funding. How was that like? How did you feel? Like, tell us. I remember also that you mentioned that after they gave you your funding for MBA, you asked for more money. What gave you the audacity to do that? Hi everyone, welcome to the Beyond Borders podcast. I'm your host, Liza. Today, we are going to be speaking with one of my friends, Franklin Nwachukwu. He is a strategy professional and a first-generation immigrant here in the US. He's going to be sharing all about his journey with us. Welcome, Franklin.
Hi, Liza.
Yay.
Everyone.
Hi, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for making our time. So, I want us to begin by you telling us your story about growing up in Nigeria. And I know there was one period where you told me all about like starting your entrepreneurial journey when you were 5.
Yes.
I want to hear that story again. I want you to share it with us.
Sure. So I grew up the first out of 4 kids. My parents were civil servants that became business people, traders and things. So my first entrepreneurial business venture was my mom's shop. Okay. So she had like a small bread shop where I would, help her to sell some of the loaves and things like that. She was a nurse, but she actually retired from being a nurse.
I see.
To working in fashion, but that was like a good side hustle. So I was definitely involved in that.
I see. So what was that process like, being 5 and having to support with selling bread? Yeah. Was this like a store away from home? In the
front of the house.
In the front of the house?
Yeah.
Okay, where was this? What part of Nigeria?
So I was born in Ibadan.
Okay.
In Nigeria, southwest Nigeria. So yeah, it was just like a kiosk or like a small stall in front of the house. And after school, I would, be there to just sell some loaves. And then in the evening, my mom would have like the new loaves for the next day from the bakery.
I see.
And then we'll put the labels on it it was a very interesting time. I was very young then. It's one of my earliest memories of, being involved in my mom's business.
I see. Okay. And how long did you do it for? Did you do it for many years or?
No, it was just a couple of years.
Okay.
But it was very impactful because I remember it. Like, I was really young. I probably had it was just me and my brother at the time. And maybe my sister was very young. But I quite remember us having that venture to support the family, to augment my family's income. We grew up, I would say like lower middle class, but my parents had a very strong sense of how they wanted to raise their children, and education was definitely, a very strong part of my family.
Are your parents educated?
They went to high school, so they finished secondary school. My dad actually went to an accounting trade school, and then he worked as an accounting clerk with like the Forestry Institute or something.
Okay.
but they actually never made it to college. So that was definitely a goal that they had for I and my siblings.
I see. So being the first person, were you the first to go to college?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
I'm actually the first person in my father's family history to attend and graduate college.
Attend and graduate.
College.
I see.
And even grad school as well.
Oh.
Yeah. So
that
was pretty big.
I see. Yeah, definitely. That's a big deal. So tell me more. You went to Nigeria. What school did you go to? What did you study before even moving here?
Yeah, so I went to the University of Ibadan.
Okay.
I really liked the school. It's the first school in Nigeria. It's what some people call like the public Ivy of Nigeria.
I see.
It's the first university. It has Nigeria's only and living Nobel laureate, Wale Soyinka. So
I see.
My school also had people like Chinua Achebe. We had a lot of, and we still have a lot of very successful and impactful alums from my school. So I was very fortunate to be born in the same city where the school, is.
Yeah.
So I went there. I studied agriculture, biochemistry, and nutrition.
All three?
Yeah.
Was that like a triple major?
It was a dual major. Bachelor's. It was a 5-year degree.
I didn't know they did that in Nigeria.
Yeah, so we had this very unique pathway. First of all, I was supposed to go to pharmacy school because I wanted to do pharmacy.
I see.
My father wanted me to do architecture because I was good with like engineering drawings, and I
see.
Still to this day can like draw the plan, like architecture drawings of like houses and machinery and things like that. But my mom wanted me to be a doctor because she wanted a doctor as her first child. So that wasn't.
And you didn't fulfill any of them
because it wasn't my dream.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do pharmacy, and I remember my dad buying like all the pharmacy textbooks so that I could like get to speed. But I ended up, studying agriculture, biochemistry, and nutrition. And very quickly, like a lot of kids in the sciences who have who are like polymaths with, they have multiple skills, passions, and interests. I realized very quickly that wasn't what I wanted to do, like, in life.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? You were done with school. You went to school for 4 years. 5 years.
Yeah, it's a 5-year program.
I see. So you finished that, and then what was the next phase of your life? Like in terms of like just obviously career-wise.
Yeah, so career-wise, that period was, I would say, an adjustment period for me because I was taking up new skills. So the first thing I started to do was to learn project management. Okay. So I knew that I loved, putting things together, and I was a lot of times like appointed to be the one to plan stuff, put structure to things. So I spent 1 year working with Utiba, which is now like a big data school in Nigeria and West Africa in general. But I started then, they had a project management program, which I then studied for and was certified in. So, and then after that, I had like a lot of projects I was managing for either nonprofits or personal projects and things like that until it was time for youth service. Youth service,
that's actually how we met, right? In Abia State.
Yes.
Aba, to be specific. Was it about Umuahia? Okay. Yeah. Tell us about like your growth process during that time, because I know you obviously did a lot of projects and.
Yeah, I actually didn't want to go to Abia State for my youth service. That was
God's own state.
I mean, you could say that, but it was divinely orchestrated. I really wanted to go to Kaduna State. I wanted to serve in Kaduna State.
Why?
Because at that time, I'm Igbo. I'm from Imo State. I was born in Ibadan, which is, Southwest. So I was fluent in Igbo and Yoruba and English as well.
Yes.
But Hausa was kind of like the missing piece from my trilogy. And I wanted to complete that by serving in Kaduna State. But, you know, when I opened that portal and I saw Abia State, I was just like, okay, whatever. My parents weren't very happy with it because they wanted me to actually serve in another state. But
interesting.
Yeah.
So what was that process, NYSC process for you? Like, I just want you to take us through the journey of you being a first generation, first of all, student. You graduated from school. That alone is a big deal, right? And obviously knowing that there are 3 other people looking up to you and maybe even more, cousins and all of that. Let's even start with like, how did this particular responsibility shape your determination and also position you in a way where you're like, hey, do you ever get to that point where you're like, there are people looking up to me, I need to do better?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I knew I couldn't mess up. I knew that I couldn't make mistakes that would either derail my own plans, because I knew quite early during that process that I was breaking a yoke, so to say. I was opening a door. Because before then, my father's biggest dream was to see his children graduate from college. And, you know, I was the first to make that dream come true.
Wow.
But also I knew that it couldn't end with me. I needed to pull other people along.
Absolutely.
First, like my siblings and then my cousins. So, you know, that shaped me in taking responsibility, you know, taking the initiatives to be better at my job or any opportunity that, you know, I presented myself in. And my mom always had this saying. She says, when you show up with your best self. Because you never know. Not who's watching, not who's listening, but you just never know. And I take that with me because sometimes you can't be perfect, but you can always bring your best. So that journey for me was, you know, making sure that I was doing the best I could in terms of the clubs I joined in school. And I remember I was with with my choir. Shout out to St. Cecilia Choir. And we did a lot of tours. We went for competitions.
I see.
We, you know, learned how to be punctual, how to present yourself, we learned about leadership. And I also love to volunteer. So we were always volunteering. You know, we would sing at functions, burials, fundraisers, all this type of stuff.
So you traveled to sing?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I actually traveled to maybe 4 or 5 states, you know, actually doing music, choral competitions. You know, we did stage plays. We did excerpts from operas and things like that.
Did that help you stay grounded in some way? Being involved in the right associations?
Definitely, I would say that, because you learn structure. My choir then was kind of like the military.
I see.
We had 9 hours of rehearsals every week.
Wow.
3 hours. And then, you know, we sang in church on Sunday, but we also had rehearsals, which was really strict. You know, that's where I learned how to, you know, sing classically. That's how I learned how to read music. That's where I learned a little bit of piano and, you know, how to hold a violin and things like that. Oh, I see.
So would you sing for us before the end of this?
No.
Come on. No. You can't do that. I mean,
no.
Our podcast manager, what are you? You're saying yes, right? She's saying yes. Our production manager, what are you saying? Are you saying yes? Yeah, you have to say, you have to give us something. Is it just something? But anyways, you were selected as one of 50 exceptional young Nigerians for the VIMP, it was called program. Venture in Management Program at Lagos Business School. And, you know, we are also named as the most outstanding male participant. which I mean, I consider that a huge accomplishment for sure. What did that recognition mean to you, and how did it impact your approach to your career, leadership, and life in general?
Yeah. Vimp for me was life-changing. The only reason why I came to business school was because of Vimp.
Okay.
So during my NYSC in Abia State, so at the time, I was doing a lot of projects in addition to like my NYSC. So I was a trainer a digital trainer with Facebook Build Your Business, and just learning how to talk to like small business owners, helping them to embrace like digital marketing for the business and using like Facebook tools. I think at the time also worked as a Google trainer for a little while. And one of my friends, who I was staying with at the time, just sent me a link to one application. It was like Venture in Management Program. It was it's a mini MBA program.
Okay.
It's a 1-week program, fully residential. So they pay for your hotels, they pay for transportation, accommodation, feeding, all that. And you spend 1 week with 50 of who I think are like the smartest people, smartest young people in Nigeria at the time. And, it's very, very poetic that a lot of my friends now have been people that I've collaborated with on projects, people that I spent time in that program. We learned things like, entrepreneurship, marketing, business analysis, finance. We were also given like a business case that we had to develop an ad for. So we had to like develop the ad, and I remember staying up to like 3 a.m. to learn animation design because we needed to get the ad. So you can't outsource it. Everything has to be done.
Interesting.
You get a business case and, you make a pitch, you build an ad. So I basically like designed that in, I think, 3 nights. So we would like record the voiceovers for the ad in some of the rooms, and it just taught us how to be business leaders. And that was like the shifting point for me when I knew, okay, but what I'm doing now, I feel like the MBA is that bridge that crosses me over from being a STEM, science-oriented person to the world of business and being able to actually like solve problems.
I see. Thank you for sharing that. I want you to also speak to, obviously I'm very familiar with your MBA experience. You went from the VIMP program, did a lot of other projects in Nigeria, volunteered a lot while doing NYSC, which helped you gain a lot of experiences from leadership to project management. You were literally like all out. I need to, develop in different ways.
NYSC, I say, is like was my breakout year.
I see, your breakout year. That's very interesting. I personally didn't like NYC. More specifically, I mean, there are different things I can say. Obviously, there's a good, bad, and ugly. But I want you to speak to your journey from Nigeria to the US. You studied an MBA. You did the 2 masters, right?
Yes.
And you also got funding. I want you to speak to that process because, I mean, there might be someone watching that wants to do an MBA program or an advanced degree. And the interesting part is that you got fully funded for both of them.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
So my MBA journey started with COVID. 2020, the world, as we know it, shut down. And I moved back home to Ibadan from Lagos, where I was working with a nonprofit. So after VIMP, I actually got a job offer through VIMP. After VIMP, we had a career fair as well. So the program was all encompassing.
Nice.
Whilst I was working, COVID happened, we shut down, I went home. And I was just thinking to myself, okay, a lot of the jobs that I want either have a master's component to them or want you to have like some type of professional degree. And I knew I wanted to also work globally, like lead projects in other parts of the world, Asia, North America.
So you had a vision for your career, basically.
Definitely, I did. But I was refining that vision as I went along the journey.
Good.
So I think I just stumbled upon Lane, which is a program.
Shout out to Lane.
You know, Lane was like an amazing platform for me, and I kind of took it as my own. So I would like moderate some of the events that we had. We had some interviews with admission officers from US schools, top business schools. And I remember one day I was actually the moderator for University of Georgia, like Terry Business School, Terry College of Business, their MBA program. And I was basically the one, you know, interviewing the admission officer. And, you know, we just had a good conversation. I was like, okay, let me just check out this school and see like what the school is about. So I checked it out, applied. I just waited. A friend of mine who we applied together basically sent me a message saying, you know, I didn't get the offer, but, you know, wish you all the best. So I checked my email, got the offer.
Did you just apply though? I want you to talk about the strategies behind the scenes, because first of all, you met the admissions officer in a place of service, volunteering.
Yeah.
And that led you to check, you know, out the school. And what else followed after that?
For me, it was the service was important because it gave me that exposure to be out there, to be seen, and to actually see like what I was putting out. You know, I wasn't just, 2020 was probably like one of my more stressful years because I had to make that year work. There was just a lot of uncertainty, but you know, my strategy was making sure that I had all the things put together. I was, you know, working Monday to Friday, sometimes Monday to Saturday. And then after work, I would study for my standardized test, which I had to take. And then another strategy that I had then was just networking. So I networked with maybe 50 MBA students in the US.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
While in Nigeria?
While in Nigeria. So I would have...
So how would you network?
So I would find a school I wanted to apply to. I had, my initial list was 15 schools, but then I narrowed that down to 10 schools. So 10 schools, a combination of like target schools, safety schools, you know, the general strategy that a lot of people knew. But for me, I was like, okay, I needed to add a human connection to that. So I would just, I guess, write MBA candidate at whatever school on LinkedIn, and then search. The first 5 people that I saw on my search, I would connect with them and actually like personalize a note and say, this is what I want. I want 15 minutes of your time. I want to have a conversation with you about A, B, and C. And then I would reach out to another person and say, I want to have a conversation with you about C, D, and E, because I don't want to have the same conversations with
makes
people.
Sense.
So by the time I was ready to apply, I had a very robust knowledge of a lot of those programs. But I mean, UGA actually was one of the ones that stood out, although I had this opportunity to apply to a lot of those schools, but I eventually like settled on that one. But I also had a goal. Being first gen, I knew I couldn't afford hundreds of thousands in tuition, school loans, and things like that. It's like, okay, I need to find a school that was going to give me a fully funded scholarship for my MBA.
So you had a very clear goal.
I did.
And you had strategies to back it up.
Yeah. For me, it wasn't a question of whether or not I wanted to do that. It was like, okay, you need me to jump how high? So it's like, you need to have the score. I was studying for that score.
I see.
Or higher.
So you were putting in the work.
I was. I was putting in the work. And, you know, I made sure to the best of my abilities, I leaned into what my mom always said, always present your best self. It might not be perfect, but always present your best at every single time. So when I got that offer.
So what was your best like before you got the offer?
What was my best? My best was my best. I was I was volunteering with Lane. I was working. I was working on other projects. I was networking like there was no tomorrow. I was having a lot of conversations. And I had also a vision of like, okay, what do I add to a business school? What do I add to a class? What do I bring to the US?
So you shared that vision in your essay?
I did.
Okay.
In my statement of purpose, I had made sure my resume was clean. I had a one-pager. I sent it to a lot of my mentors. We reviewed it. They gave me feedback. I went back. Sometimes the feedback wasn't actually like what I wanted to hear, but it was crucial to helping me build the profile that was strong enough to compete globally, because then you have people applying from other countries and other continents, and you want to stand out. So from the moment when I sent that application, it was like, okay, whatever happens, but I had a very, very strong conviction of like, this is what I want to do. This is when I wanted to do it. And I almost knew that by fall of 2021, I wasn't going to be in Nigeria.
I see. Okay.
I mean, people look at like leaving Nigeria as this whole thing that's like a necessity for them. During my NYSC year, I actually let go of an opportunity to leave Nigeria to actually volunteer for the UN. But I knew at that point in time, it wasn't the time for me. Okay. I just wanted to, stay in Nigeria for that specific year. I said again, like my NYSC year was my breakout year. Okay. And a lot of the things that I have in my life today are fruits of the seeds that I planted during my NYSC year. The people that I met, the collaborators on different projects, the platforms that I've been on, the people that have mentored me, even some of my greatest like adversities came from the seeds that I planted during my service year. So that year, I always tell anyone who's going for service, make sure that you're putting in like the best that you have into that year. I got maybe 10 certificates. I was certified in everything.
Everything. So you were one of those people.
I was one of those people like, oh, you need to learn how to like be a technology project manager. It's like, okay, what class do you have to take for that?
So one thing I've learned from your story, whether it's career and just even personal as well, is you being able to maximize situations as much as possible. So you had an opportunity to literally, what I like to call it breaking a generational curse or a generational limitation by being the first person to go to college and running with that same mindset to obviously NYSC, maximizing your NYSC year as much as possible, then saying, okay, what's the next phase for me? You got into VIMP. You maximized your VIMP phase very well and got a job. And then after that, it's like the next one. How do I ensure I get to this next level? And your vision became more global, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, I want to do an MBA, right? So speak to us about, because I believe that there are a lot of young people that can really learn from your story. It's not just fluff. I'm recognizing that I have a vision for what I want to achieve for my career. I'm ensuring that I put in the work to back up that vision. So it's not just, I want to do an MBA, but I'm not taking the necessary steps. I'm not doing the GRE, I'm just chilling, right? I want to do an MBA, but I'm not networking. I want to do an MBA, but I'm not putting my narrative and my story together. But you've been able to do that. Now let's transition to, yes, you got the admission, you got full funding. How was that like? How did you feel? Like, tell us. When you got that. I remember also that you mentioned that after they gave you your funding for MBA, you asked for more money. What gave you the audacity to do that?
First of all, I cried when I got that offer.
Oh, okay.
Because that year was the third year that I had gotten into schools for like grad school. But the previous years I didn't have enough funding to.
Wow.
So I would get like a 60%, 70% scholarship.
Got it.
But even the extra 30% wasn't coming from anywhere. So it's like you either find more scholarship or you're not going. So I ended up not going to a lot of the schools.
I see.
That other business schools as well, some schools, top schools in the UK. I also tried the UK as well. I looked at a lot of places. That funding process, when I saw that offer letter, I was
wow.
Yeah, I was pretty ecstatic. Then I remember my daily song was Hallelujah Challenge by Nathan Obasi. That's why Nathan Obasi is one of my top like artists that I listen to, because that song just spoke a lot to me. At that point in time, when a lot of things were very seemingly, bleak, that was a song that I had as like my anchor. So
would you sing the song for us?
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, please. Okay.
So then when I saw the offer, I was like, okay, yes, I have this offer. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. I was living in a house. It was like a 6-bedroom house. We had like an office space. My friend had a startup. So another friend was a creator. So he had like a YouTube studio where he would like record. And we had like 6 guys living in the same apartments. It was a big, large apartment. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted it to mature. I wanted it to take, I was holding space for it. I wanted it to have its own life.
What did that look like practically?
It was hard because you have this thing that you've worked years for. Like, okay, I'm getting to that level, and then you finally hit it, but you're waiting for the right moment to share it. I didn't want to share it before it was mature. I wanted to take, and I was also silently practicing just being grateful for what I received. But then I had a conversation with my mentor. And
Who's your mentor?
Conversation with my mentor. One of my mentors, his name is Benga.
Okay.
And he said, well, that offer is really good. I think you should go back and ask them for more. And I was like...
Shout out to Benga for that prompt.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I spoke to another friend of mine who I had met at Lane.
Okay.
Her name is Hosanna.
Hi, Hosanna.
Shout out to Hosanna as well. And she was like, yeah, just ask. What's the worst that could happen and no, right?
So why were you asking for more money?
I was asking for more funding because when I did like the pluses and minuses, I still needed like extra funding to, yes, full tuition is great, but there are other things that goes into like an MBA program.
Yes.
You need like travel for like conferences where you would network for job opportunities. You need like, we had an international residency trip that was planned, and you foot a lot of those bills. So I just needed to make sure that financially I had like a safety net, but it wasn't like, oh, if you don't give me this money, I'm not going.
I see.
It was the thing of, this would actually go a long way to help me to not be worried about like finances. Also at that time, I was majorly the breadwinner of my family. So even when I wasn't working during the COVID pandemic, I had set aside like funds for my family because I was like, okay, if I'm taking time off work to focus on grad school and writing exams and studying and things, I still needed to make sure I was taking care of business, right? So as a first child, you have responsibilities. And like I said, I couldn't mess up. So it was very, very, okay, I need to be strong. I need to be steady during that period. And, I sent out the email and they were like, yeah, I don't think we have enough funding. And then on my birthday, I got an early birthday gift. I saw that I got an email and the amounts that I had, my extra scholarship was doubled.
Oh, wow.
Literally. And that was one of the biggest blessings of that program. Then coming into the US, finding out that, okay, I was fully funded. And, I had a point where I had the opportunity to take on another master's degree, and that was funded as well.
So you did an MBA and then a master's in
business analytics.
So you double masters, both of them fully funded.
Yes.
How did you sell your story to get both the full funding and also the extra money as well? Because I mean, a lot of other people were also applying.
Yeah.
What made you different?
My value.
Okay.
And I placed a higher premium on myself. I know that personally, I am harder on myself than anyone is on me. So I challenged myself.
Okay.
First of all, one of the things I noticed was that we didn't have a Blacks in Business club in the business school. That was one of my pillars. I was like, if you give me a space in the class and you give me this money, I will make sure that not only am I on the executive council of the Blacks in Business Club, but I'm going to make sure it's a long-standing club. And up to today, it still is. So
you had the business case, very clear one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had the clear value proposition beyond your background. You're like, hey, I can see a gap in your school when it comes to diversity.
And I can fix it.
I love it.
Yeah. So another thing again I knew was I couldn't do it alone. So I reached out to another Nigerian who I knew, because I can only talk to the people that I know and I can only start with what I have. I spoke with her and she had just gotten her admission into the same business school. And I said, I think we should partner together to actually establish the business school.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, let's be co-presidents.
I see.
Right? So that for me was like my value proposition, in addition to other things. But that was like that was like the defining goal of my candidacy. It was like, okay, if I come to this business school, we're going to set this up. And clockwork, by next spring, we had the club running. By the next summer, we had like our first alumni event, and we just built this thing that now has taken shape. Amazing. Now we've had three different councils that stem from that. It's growing in numbers. We had our first editorial. We just had a lot of things that we wanted to do, and we weren't afraid to roll up our sleeves, I guess. That's
amazing. I love it. So you made that promise and you backed it up with action. Awesome. So as let's say someone is asking you this question, right? Yeah. As a new immigrant pursuing my MBA in the US, how can I effectively maximize opportunities and position myself to excel, ultimately become a top performer in both my academic and professional pursuits? What would you advise that person?
First, you have to know who you are.
Okay.
Because I knew the things that I wasn't good at. I'm not going to say those things, but
tell us.
There are some things I'm not great at.
Okay.
I feel it's really hard to find something that I truly suck at. I feel like one thing that I'm really not good at is, for someone who sings, I'm terrible at whistling. I cannot whistle to save my life. That whistle that people do during, I'm really terrible at it. Okay. But there were some things that I knew that I was very good at, and I knew my strengths. I knew who I was.
I see.
I knew I was first gen.
Okay.
And I was unapologetic about it. It's okay, if you want me in the program, you have to embrace this side of me. I am, in a lot of ways, a pioneer. But I'm a pioneer that has a vision to not be the only one to do something.
Right.
To be the first to make others do it as well. So I had those very, very serious goals. Know who you are. That's the first thing. The second thing, again, I would say is you have to build the mental fortitude that will take you far.
Okay.
Because as an immigrant, I was leaving my entire family behind. I had a job in Nigeria. I wasn't, thank God, I wasn't, going through it and just I wasn't leaving Nigeria because I didn't have like a hope. I only wanted something better. I wanted to take my career and myself to the next level.
Got it.
So have that hunger, and then have backbone, have a spine.
What does that look like?
Knowing when to compromise and when to take a stand. It's very important. And a spine is very important because there are some things that you wouldn't be able to achieve if you don't stand your ground and say no. One of those things for me was I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew that I was going to be in the US, in a very, without cutting corners. So I was going to pay my taxes on time. I'm going to do all the necessary things I was supposed to do. I was not going to become a statistic, because it's like, oh, there's immigrants and there's the immigrant story. And it's really important that stories like this are also told to show that you can be an immigrant and also be someone who changes things for good.
Absolutely.
You can be an immigrant and still be someone who adds value to any situation that you're placed in. So making sure that you're a plus and not a minus to any situation that you're put in, because a lot of the things that I've been allowed to grow either by myself or with a team came from my personal desire to actually do something that would help, and having the courage to raise my hand or be like, fine, I'll do it. It's hard, but I'll do it. And also having that backbone to say, this is what I will do and this is what I will not do.
I see. So what does that even look like practically what are some practical things that an immigrant who just got an admission to an MBA program can do to ensure that they excel academically and professionally? Okay,
academically, know where your library is. Know all the privileges and
privileges as in resources or
resources.
Okay.
With your library card, you can have access to all the ebooks that you probably buy on paid platforms. People don't know this. With your library card, you can, access like resources, podcasts, free courses. You can join a class, a group, a club that, teaches a niche skill. You can find the resources to help you improve like your public speaking. There's a Toastmasters, club in a lot of schools in America. There's a 3-minute thesis where you can start to build your skills to become a TEDx speaker tomorrow. Like, there are resources. So academically, there are some things that you need to find, know where your library is, know what all the resources that you have at your disposal. Have an accountability group of like-minded individuals who have the same goal or like similar goals to what you're looking for, and pour into them the same way you want to be poured into, because sometimes it's whilst you're giving yourself that you receive all the things that you actually want out of life. And I've seen that firsthand in terms of like the places that granted me skills, people that I've met, which I consider to be like the best thing you can ever have, like people to surround you.
The right support system.
Yeah, the right support system came from me just putting myself out there to say, okay, let's just try it. Let's do it. Well, it might have not been done before, but let's actually try. And you have to be willing to try. To be successful in school. Also, one thing you need to learn as an immigrant, like getting closer to your professors is probably more advantageous than not.
In what ways?
Okay, there were times when like I probably needed, extra 2 hours to submit like a project, because the project was not only like extensive, but we had like multiple projects at the time. Sometimes all you need to do is let your professor know that you have like 3 deadlines on the same day and you would like an extension of 1 hour. And you will be surprised the number of times that your professor is going to say yes. It's going to be 100%. I mean, except maybe you've taken advantage of those situations in the past.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are times when I've turned in an assignment on time and then learning that the time was extended by 2 days because some other student didn't feel like comfortable with the timeline, raised up their hand to say, you know, can I get some more time? It's perfectly cool. You don't have to have the persona of, I know there's this saying about Nigerians, and Niger no they carry last and stuff. Like, we try not to show weakness. We try not to show discomfort. We try not to make ourselves, you know, seem like we have flaws, of which we all do as human beings, right? So just being able to say, hey, by the way, I would like to sit in this class for 2 hours or 1 hour to just, I'm not taking the class, but I would like to audit the class. You know, those things can be incredibly helpful for you. And then in the professional space, one thing that I have noticed with, you know, in the short time that I've been here is how far being likable will take you in addition to hard work. In addition to hard work, you also have to be likable.
Yeah.
You cannot be the insufferable team member that no one wants to be on the same flight with to the strategy session, or no one wants to room with during a work holiday or whatnot. You have to be likable. Likability is not you. I think I'm an ambivert. Like, I'm introverted, but sometimes when I need to get things done, I will bust out of my shell, and you will be shocked at how extroverted I will be until I go back into my shell. But likability is an asset. It's a weapon, and if you know how to wield it, you will go far.
Right.
It's not kissing ass. It's not compromising. Likability can just be being polite to people, being kind. It won't kill you if you hold the door open.
Right.
It's not like someone smiled while she passed. Yeah, they might be microaggressive towards you, but sometimes they might just be smiling. Sometimes your outfit just made them smile. Don't take things too personally. Just be yourself. Like I said, already know who you are, but likability in the workplace is a huge, even in school, I remember like there were some instances where some people just got opportunities because people were like, well, I just like her. Okay. Like, you just hear a lady say that about someone. It's like, well, why did you pick this person? Well, I just like her. But I'm just like,
because I mean, generally people want to work with people they like, right?
Yeah. Like, you never want to be with someone who you feel doesn't like you. I mean, you can be professional, make it work, but you would rather not go through that friction. Yeah. So likability is really important. Having a mentor, a buddy, and a sponsor.
Okay, break it down.
A mentor helps you to understand the secrets and the nuances of things that will take you far and things that will derail you. A buddy is someone who you can grow with, and it's like someone you can have a good, you know, day-to-day relationship with, because we all need someone. Absolutely. And that's one thing, and that's where likability comes into play. If you're not likable, no one is going to want to walk with you whilst you guys go to the cafeteria to get lunch. Those simple things enhance you as a person, even as a worker. A sponsor puts in a word when you're not in the room. Right. They bring up your name where you don't have that social currency to say, hey, might as well. I saw this person in this project and I think they're great. And before you know, you have 3 other people reaching out to you for the same thing because you have someone who was able to use their voice for you in the room. And that's what I do now. When I see opportunities that I feel oh, I know someone who
Right.
I'm mentoring who this will be life-changing for, I'll just be like, I actually know someone. It doesn't matter if they take me up on that offer or not. The most important thing is to be a sponsor when you can, but make sure you also find a sponsor, because a lot of the times those conversations that really change things are done with a very small group of people.
Absolutely. So how do people find a sponsor? I know people would typically ask, oh, how do I find a mentor? And the normal, like the usual response is, don't ask them to be your mentor. I mean, I have my own reservations about that. I mean, yeah, obviously you can't just walk up to someone and ask them to be a mentor. There are different ways and strategies around that. But let's zoom into sponsorship as well.
Yeah. Sponsorship is something that I started paying attention to, one, after Vim, and two, I had to also change my perspective. Maybe not change, but maybe iterate a bit, or change slightly my perspective when I moved to the US, because there are two different social climates.
Okay.
And I listened to Hala Harris.
I love her so much.
One of her speeches, and then I also explored her and I researched her. And a sponsor, you need a sponsor. How do you get a sponsor? You get a sponsor by, number one, is by asking them.
So compared to mentorship, you think you can literally...
You have to ask for a sponsor.
So do you ask them, can you be my sponsor?
No,
What ways?
I mean, okay, there are different ways that you can, depending on the culture of the company you're working for. But one very strong thing that you want to do is show someone that I'm shadowing you. And people always say imitation is the best form of flattery. And it's true. People love, except the person's a terrible person, but even if the person's a terrible person, they still love people to shadow them. The fact that you're following someone's footstep and you're making actively known is really powerful. So one thing that you want to do if you're looking for a sponsor, you want to, reach out to them. You want to make it known that you follow their work. Number two, and that's slightly different from mentorship, because a mentor doesn't have the power that a sponsor does. Your mentor cannot just say, well, I think he should also get a raise at the end of the year. Why? Because they don't have the social currency. Power is power. And that's what a sponsor has. Once you're able, obviously people talk about, show your value, work hard and all those things. Yes, that's important. But you also have to ask the person, your sponsor, to be your sponsor. You need to say, I want to be in that room, or I want to get to this level, and I want your help to help me get there.
And this is something a lot of immigrants do not know. First of all, there's that information gap.
Yeah.
And even if they know about it, they don't know how to ask. Yeah, there's definitely that gap for sure. But I would like us to talk about, obviously, as immigrants, we go through different forms of culture shocks.
Yeah.
Tell us 3 culture shocks that you experienced when you came here.
Culture shocks.
The
first one, and probably to this day, my most despised one, is the 1 second smile.
Okay.
So picture this, you're walking down a hallway, and there's someone walking towards you, and for your eyes meet for just 1 second. In fact, I call it a 1 millisecond smile, right? For a millisecond, you think they're going to say hi or good morning.
Oh my goodness.
And they just flash you the fakest, most plastic, and then they turn their face away and they don't even say anything to you.
I don't even, I really want to respond to that, because my sister and I, on several occasions, we've talked about this. Oh, I just said hi to that person. They didn't even smile. They didn't respond. Like, why do they do that in the US sometimes? Like, even when you smile, you're like, good morning.
It's like
am I talking to a rock? Why didn't you respond to me?
Yeah, like, who raised you? Were you raised by wolves?
Do you understand?
It's very interesting. It's just like, at that point in time where I see you, see me, see you.
Yeah.
And then you flash the smile and you walk past. So it's still, I'm still perplexed to this day about that. But
if you're watching this and you do that, please just stop it. Stop it.
Yeah, and till maybe up until last week, I still said hi to someone who gave me the millisecond smile, and they didn't even respond.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was called like that, but it's almost like on several occasions.
I think I've trademarked it actually.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's
the millisecond smile.
The millisecond.
Everyone knows that smile.
Yeah,
and it's cringe.
Yeah, it's like
in flesh. That's it's too cringe.
Yeah.
And then obviously learning that good morning is more of a continental / Anglo-Saxon / British way of greeting.
Yes.
Hi is, in fact, hello is even a little more cordial. Like hi is the pinnacle of greetings to people in the American society. So that's something I also had to learn in addition to the millisecond smile. The second thing, culture shock, is, I mean, people say this a lot, but it's how you can have the most fun conversation with someone in your class, at work, your neighbor perhaps, and the next day you might have probably not even existed to them.
Jeez.
It's like
these things are real. It's real. It is real, and I feel like we need to talk about it.
Okay.
You have a wonderful conversation with this person. Maybe at work you feel like, oh, this is my work bestie.
I feel like I'm not even going to say anyone's my work bestie.
Oh my, yeah. At this point,
no.
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm still hopeful.
Yeah,
that I'll get there.
I have different standards of before I get to work bestie with someone. But you think this is someone that you're at least building a sort of work relationship with, or like in school, oh, this is my classmate, right? And then the next day, in the hallway, they don't even give you the millisecond smile.
They don't even give you that. Why?
They don't even give you the millisecond smile.
Trust me. These are some of the challenges that immigrants experience. And at some point, I've met some people that are like, you know what, Liza, I'm just going to stop saying hi.
And so some people internalize that as well.
Yes, they do.
They internalize it as people not being nice to them.
Nice. Some people take it that very personal. They're like, maybe I'm not good enough.
Exactly. So
it's not you, it's them. It's not you, it's them.
Who is listening, it's not you. It's one of those times when that term actually applies.
Yes.
It's not you, that the person didn't say hi, or that the person actually didn't acknowledge you. I guess the third...
They just weren't raised well. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. They have a screw that is off. Oh my goodness, what?
Yeah, I would say maybe that's close to it, but don't internalize.
We are trying to be nice.
The third one is... I'm trying to remember the third one. The third one is something that people do. A lot of times I feel like it's born out of curiosity.
Okay.
But sometimes it gives off the impression that the other person is, again, maybe just not from here, right? And this one maybe took me a little while to get used to not internalize that or personalize that.
So I feel like I know what you meant.
I feel like you might know, but
I hear an accent. Where are you from?
Yeah, it's like I hear an accent. Where are you from?
I'm from your village.
And I'm like, you have an accent too.
Exactly.
You have an American.
I've gotten to the point where I'm like, it's a flex. I have an accent. So do you. So what?
Yeah, that's
right.
I say you have an accent too. You have an American accent.
Yeah, and honestly, most of the time now, I respond, oh yeah, I'm Nigerian, proudly African. Where are you from? I hear an accent too.
Yeah, so those, I mean, there are a lot of culture shocks of the happy hour culture shock, the gifting culture shock, the the holiday event culture shock. There are just so many. The food culture shock.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of people come to America and just have like whiplash from the food. I remember my first meal. Oh gosh, my first meal wasn't like, let's just say when they rank countries with food, America doesn't rank really high. Let's just say that, because the meal that I had was just, not it. So I feel like those are my top three, but there are a couple of ones. I mean, there are some people that have good meals, but generally I feel like even Americans would even agree that the consensus that if you want to have a nice meal, like you need to find someone with some seasoning and ethnicity. And as a Black person in America, that just became aware of my Blackness when I came to America. Like, please find a Black person if you want to, enjoy good food. Because you probably wouldn't get that from a lot of the general food places.
So Franklin, I want you to speak finally to the first gen immigrant, to the first gen student who is literally at that point where they are starting a new phase of their lives. What would you advise them?
To every first gen immigrant, I would say you have to know who you are. And being the first is okay. You have to know that you have power, and you have more power than you actually think you do. I would say give yourself grace to be strong, but also give yourself grace when you're not as strong as you should be. Because a lot of the times, what I needed was to have some kindness, to be kind to myself sometimes. Because you can get this idea that you always have to be perfect, that you always have to be solid for the people that you have around you. Because usually if you're the first gen immigrant, first gen student, first gen whatever, more often than not, you're the first child as well. So you have siblings that, are kind of building on your legacy. So I would say be kind to yourself. Understand that you can be the reason why someone else decides to be a better version of themselves. And once you break that barrier, it can never be closed again. That's something that I realized. And I think we had a conversation where, we really, at least after that conversation, I saw the real impact that being in that vantage position kind of places you physically, mentally, and also like spiritually as well. Because then after that period in time, it almost just seemed like every one of my cousins, siblings, even older people were looking to go back to school because you had done it.
Amazing. And what role has your faith played in all of this?
Oh, a lot. I would say a huge part, because there was no world that I wasn't going to go to college. Like, I was valedictorian in, not to toot my horn, but I was a valedictorian in primary school, what is known as elementary school, also like middle school as well. So like in secondary school, like there was no way that I wasn't going to go to college. I felt like for me, the bar that I wanted to raise was grad school. It's like, okay, let's take it a notch higher.
I see.
And let's go to grad school and let's get a master's degree. And then I went to go to grad school and it's like, instead of one master's, you can do two. Right? So I always placed that extra premium on myself to be better than I was the day before. So
awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us today and listening to Franklin's story. So I have 3 requests for you today. Firstly, please subscribe to this channel so that you can be part of this wonderful growing community. Secondly, I would really love if you could share this with your network. And thirdly, in the description below, you are definitely going to see a link to our newsletter. We'd love to have you to be part of our community, so please subscribe. And finally, I know it's more than 3, leave a comment below telling us what you learned from this episode, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.